I'm going to take a minute to show you how to use the LDS.org documentation and JavaScript library that I created. So if you just search for LDSorgJS, it should come up as the first hit. So this is the library here, and what I'll have you do is we'll need to copy and paste this right here. This is the pre-built library. If you wanted to build it yourself, if you wanted to make some modifications to it, then you would follow these steps here. But I'm just going to open this up in a new tab, and then I'm going to click on Raw here, and then I'm going to hit Control A to highlight everything, and Control C. Actually, I'm on Mac, so I'm using Command A and Command C to select everything and copy everything. Then I'm opening up a new tab again and going to LDS.org. And then once I get here, I'm going to go ahead and open up the JavaScript console. It's under Tools and JavaScript console. And then I'm going to click on this Sign In and go to Directory. And from there, it's going to ask me for a username and password. Now, in the past, it was a bit complicated to be able to register an account. Now it's really easy. You just click on the Register Account button, and the only thing that you need is your membership number, which is located on your Temple Recommend. So it's a really simple, straightforward sign-up process. If you don't have a Temple Recommend, then in that case, you'll need to ask the bishop or the ward clerk for your membership record number. But anyway, I already have an account, so I'll just go ahead and sign in. And what I'm going to do now is I'll go ahead and just clear the console out. I'm going to hit Command V or Control V to paste in that library that I'd copied and hit Enter. Now that library is loaded. So you don't really need to know the details of what all this is. I'll just let that be. But what we need next is to run some code that will use the library. And I have here a directory full of examples. And so there's one that gets the organizations for the current ward, the state callings, the ward callings, the ward directory, etc. And there's this one here called all the things. Oh, and clear is an example of how to clear the database. So I have this one called all the things, so I'll open up that in a new tab, and that gets everything. Same thing here, I need to go to raw, but before I do that, I just want to explain it. So here I'm requiring LDSorg, the library, and then I'm creating an instance of the library. And the part that's really interesting, this part doesn't even work, that's just some code that I have in there that I'll have to modify later. So the interesting part is this get stuff is the callback once it's been initialized. So we have this LDS.org init get stuff as the callback. So here's the get stuff, and the get stuff takes I'm calling the get current stake method, which turns out it gets everything. If I didn't want it to get everything, I could specify this option for wards false or full households false. Which would make it either not get the wards or not get all of the households individually in the wards. But I have this global variable here, stake. It's actually declared up at the top, var stake. And then I console.log all done after I sign that. However, that's not all that it's doing, because this process takes about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the day and the size of the wards and the size of the stake. So in addition to passing in the callback, I also pass in all these options. Each of these is a listener of some type, and it gets called when that type of data is being downloaded. So I have a bunch of fancy console.log stuff going on to make it nice and pretty, and that's the entire the rest of the file is just all listeners. So I'm listening on every possible event. Let me scroll back up to the top here. So again, it's mostly just this get stuff, this LDS.org init, and then the listeners. and there's a couple of initializations. These couple of functions, these two, they don't work yet, so you don't need to worry about those. I'm going to go back to the top and click on raw, and Command A, Command C to select all and to copy. And then I'm going to go back over here, let me clear that out, and I'm going to paste this in. Now, as soon as I hit enter, this is going to start running. Normally the process would take 20 or 30 minutes. It's only going to take about 20 or 30 seconds because I've already cached the data in the database. The database sits in the browser, the indexed DB. So when I hit enter, it should scroll through really fast. And so it does. Okay, great. It's all done. So now I have this variable. I'm going to create a variable stake.json equals json.stringify stake, and that's going to take the entire stake directory with all of the callings and everything and stringify it. And then if I do stake.json.length divided by 1024 times 1024. Okay, all of this data is about 16 megabytes, so it's quite a bit of data. The best way I've found to get this out of the browser and into something else is either to post it to a server that is going to accept that file, or if I clear here and then I do stake.json and just hit enter, it's going to return that 16 megabyte string, which takes a second. I'll go all the way up to the top. Probably gonna have to grab this bar here. Oops. Okay, click. There we go. Now I'm going to start selecting. I'm going to hold Shift and then Command and let go of my click and then hit the down arrow. And now I'm going to let go of Command and hit the up arrow and then just hit the right arrow until I get to that equal, or the quotation mark. Now I'm hitting Command C to copy, and I will paste this into Sublime Text, because Sublime Text is actually really good at handling a 16 megabyte file, whereas most other text editors, when you try to paste that much in, they crap out. So I just hit paste. It's going to take a few seconds, but it gets there. Alright, so let me go back here. Now I'm going to save this. I'm going to save it as Orem YSA stake complete.json. I'll just go ahead and put that in my documents folder. Now, if you want to see the information that this got, I'm going to click back on the main LDSorg repository and click on LDS.org API documentation. And this is pretty close. There's a few resources that have been merged together, but basically all of the resources listed here are part of what was downloaded. So this is metadata about the user. I don't think that's included in the exported file, but this ward information, or the stake and ward information is included. The household information is included. The photo information is included. There's resources for, I don't think I include the map, but you can generate the map if you know the household ID and the ward ID, so that's not really useful anyway. Let's see, oh, the leadership information for the ward, for the stake, not just the positions, but who's called to those positions. And I think the only thing that I forgot to include in this version is there's also a resource to show which missionaries are serving in that ward, and that is currently not included, but if you want to add that and pull request it, otherwise I'll get around to it at some point. But these are the resources for that right there. So that at least shows you how to get all the data, and hopefully from there you can be able to look at that JSON and kind of play with it and figure out how to get to the things you need. Obviously, because this is really raw, coming straight from the API, which is the LDS.org API is very incoherent. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's all over the place. So the data doesn't really necessarily match up. There's not a good way to say, well, here's this person in the directory, and then here's this person listed in their calling. The way that you'd have to do that is either by their display name or by their phone number. Like, the IDs aren't shared. So actually getting that data in a format that's useful is still a little bit tricky, and I haven't gotten around to that quite yet. But anyway, hopefully that's useful, and I'll get you started. If this was useful for you, please go ahead and give that little thumbs up button a nice click. Also, you'll see the notes are in the comments section down below. You can either at the end of the article or right up at the top. Give it a like, tweet, +1, whatever. Thanks.